Nothing you meet is random. It's all connected. What if the person who just walked into your life wasn't really new at all? What if your heart recognized them long before your mind did? He had felt it before, that sudden pull, quiet, magnetic, impossible to explain. It wasn't her smile, not her words. It was something deeper, something ancient, as if she carried a key to a door inside him he didn't even know existed.
And you've likely felt it too. That eerie sense that someone is familiar, even if you've never met. As if they're not just a person, but a symbol. Not just a face, but a mirror.
Carl Jung called this projection, but not the kind we throw around casually. This is projection of the soul, where your unconscious sees itself reflected in another and calls it love.
It doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for logic. It slips past the surface and then speaks in symbols, in memory, in ache.
Because here's the secret Jung whispered through his life's work. Love is never random. It looks like chance, but it's not. Behind every instant spark is a silent pattern, sculpted by years of longing, wounds unhealed, and parts of yourself you were never allowed to become. So when they look at you and fall, maybe they're not falling for you at all. Maybe they're falling for the version of themselves they buried, forgotten, deep within. And when you fall, maybe it's not about their voice, their energy, or even their eyes. Maybe it's the echo of something you lost long ago, a part of your soul trying to come home. To fall in love, then, is to remember something you never knew you forgot. What if that spark you feel for someone was never about them? What if it was the shape of your wounds, recognizing the shape of their presence? He always believed love was a matter of luck, a glance, a moment, a heartbeat out of sync. But now, he wasn't so sure. Because when she appeared, it wasn't random. It felt rehearsed, like a scene long written by something older than memory. And the deeper he fell, the more it felt like falling inward, not toward her, but toward a forgotten part of himself. You see, according to Jung, love is never just chemistry. It's geometry, the precise structure of your unconscious, reaching for what it was denied. There is a blueprint beneath attraction, and it's been forming in silence for years. Every heartbreak, every unmet need, every shadow you avoided, they sculpted an outline. And now, when someone arrives who fits that outline, your heart doesn't choose. It reacts, not to their soul, but to what they symbolize. Think about it. Have you ever met someone who didn't just excite you, or they disturbed you? Not because they were wrong for you, but because they felt too right, too fast. Almost like déjà vu wrapped in skin.
That is not coincidence. That is the unconscious speaking.
He didn't fall for her. He fell for the doorway she opened. And maybe so have you. So the next time you feel that eerie pull, pause, look closer. Is it love, or is it your past whispering, now's your chance? Because some connections aren't about who the other person is, they're about who you're finally ready to become.
And the question is, are you?
What if the reason they're drawn to you is because you're not you to them at all? You're a missing piece, a symbol, a doorway. She didn't know why she couldn't look away. He wasn't her type, not the one she pictured, but something about him unraveled her. He didn't speak the words she expected. He didn't follow the rhythm she knew, yet his presence, it cracked something open, a silence inside her, a hunger she never named. Carl Jung called it the unconscious magnet. You're not just attracted to someone, you're pulled to what your psyche has been starving for. And sometimes you become that magnet for someone else, They see you, and without realizing it, they breathe in a part of themselves that's been missing. Maybe it's your calm, and they've lived in chaos. Maybe it's your freedom, and they've lived in cages. Maybe it's your stillness, and they've never known peace. They don't just want you, they want to be near the thing you awaken inside them. It feels like admiration, but it's often dependence in disguise. And here's where the illusion begins. Because if they don't realize this, they won't love you. They'll love the feeling you give them. They'll cling, idealize, worship, until the spell breaks. And it always breaks, because you're not their unfinished story, you're your own. So when they fall, ask yourself, are they falling for you? Or for the version of themselves they've buried so long, they forgot it even had a name? And when someone lights up in your presence, notice what flickers in them, but also what burns quietly in you. What if the love they give you was never yours to hold? What if it was a mirror, and you were just standing in the wrong place at the right time? He didn't know when it shifted. One day, her gaze held wonder. The next, it held expectation. At first, she said he made her feel alive, free, seen, but soon he became responsible for keeping that aliveness alive, not because he changed, but because the illusion could no longer breathe without effort. This is the danger Carl Jung warned about. Projection becomes prison. They fall in love with the symbol of what they need, not the reality of who you are. And you may wear the weight of someone else's longing without ever realizing it. When someone says, "You complete me," it sounds romantic, but Jung might ask, why were they incomplete in the first place? And what makes you think it's your job to fix that? Because here's the truth hiding in shadow. The more someone idealizes you, the more they erase your humanity. They don't see your cracks. They see their reflection in the glass you unknowingly became.
But you're not their lost dream. You're not their unfinished father. You're not the echo of the mother they never understood.
You're you, and eventually your truth will show. And when it does, their love might not survive it. So when someone clings to your light, ask quietly, is it me they see? Or just the shape of what they've refused to become? Because sometimes you are not the answer they found. You are the mirror they broke, trying not to look too deeply into themselves.
And what if you're doing the same?
What if they loved you before they even met you? Not because they knew you, but because you resembled someone they've been carrying in silence their entire life. She couldn't explain it. He wasn't perfect, but there was something about the way he moved, the quiet way he looked at her, like déjà vu wearing a different face. To Carl Jung, this wasn't coincidence. This was the anima, or its opposite, the animus. Every man, Jung believed, holds within him a hidden image of the feminine, every woman a hidden image of the masculine, not shaped by logic, but by early imprints, childhood wounds, unmet needs, and mythic energies passed down through generations. These aren't preferences, they're blueprints, emotional codes stored in the unconscious, symbols waiting to be activated. And one day, someone appears. They match the shape, not the outer one, the inner one, the one you didn't know you were waiting for. It doesn't take years, it happens in seconds, and suddenly you become a reflection of their inner goddess, or they become the echo of your silent protector. But this is where it becomes dangerous, because archetypes don't love back. They project, they idealize, they demand perfection from a human being who never agreed to be a symbol. And when your real self begins to show, the image breaks. Not because you failed, but because no one can hold up the weight of another's unfinished story. So if someone stares at you like they've known you forever, pause, ask yourself, are they seeing you, or the ghost they've been trying to meet since childhood? And if your heart races in return, maybe you've been dreaming of their silhouette too, not as a person, but as a pattern, waiting to awaken. What happens when the image they've loved no longer fits your face? What do they do when the symbol cracks, and all that's left is your humanness? Eli felt it shift. Mira had once looked at him like he was the answer. Her eyes held a quiet reverence, like he was something holy. Not a man, but a meaning. But now there was confusion in her gaze, doubt, disappointment. Not because he failed, but because he finally showed her the parts she had chosen not to see. This is what Jung warned of. Every projection comes with a fracture point, the moment where fantasy meets friction, where the mask you wore unknowingly begins to fall. You didn't ask to be worshipped, but still, they placed you on the altar of their longing. And when your voice trembles or your boundaries resist, when your flaws begin to bloom in the light, you threaten their myth. Not because you did anything wrong, but because you're real. This is the tragedy of unconscious love. It feels like fate, but it's really a reflection, a shadow play, an inner wound dressing itself in your body. And when the illusion collapses, you're left standing in the ruins of someone else's dream, holding pieces that were never yours. Maybe you've been there too. Maybe someone once broke your heart, but all they did was stop pretending to be the archetype you had cast. So ask yourself now, when they loved you, was it truly you, or the version they built to avoid loving themselves? And when you loved them, was it really them? Or a ghost you've been chasing through every pair of eyes that almost made you whole but never stayed?
And if that ghost was you?
What if some people aren't meant to love you forever, but only long enough to wake something up inside you? What if the ones who leave were never a loss, but a signal? Mira didn't understand why Eli disappeared so quickly, how something that had felt eternal unraveled in silence. But maybe it wasn't about staying, because sometimes the soul doesn't come to settle, it comes to shake. Carl Jung called them activators of the psyche, the ones who enter your life not to complete you, but to disturb the illusion that you were ever finished. Not every connection is meant to become a chapter. Some are meant to burn through you like a flare. Brief, blinding, unforgettable. They mirror the part of you you've ignored. They break open the locked room inside your psyche, the one with all the dust and memory.
And then they leave. And it hurts, because you thought it was love.
But what if it was something deeper? What if it was your shadow using their voice to finally speak? Because you don't just fall in love with people, you fall in love with potentials, with patterns, with pieces of yourself disguised in someone else's skin.
And when they vanish, they take the fantasy with them. But the awakening, that stays.
Maybe you've lived this, maybe you still ache from it. But here's the truth Jung would offer. Some people come to awaken you, not to stay, not to soothe, just to shake the parts of you that were never meant to sleep. So the next time someone enters like a fire and exits like smoke, ask yourself, was it their absence that hurt, or the silence that returned when you stopped hearing your soul speak? What if the person who hurt you the most wasn't even real? What if they were a mask, stitched from memory, shadow, and unmet need? Eli had been gone for months. But Mira still saw his silhouette in crowded rooms, still heard his voice in the silence between distractions. Not because he was unforgettable, but because he had never just been himself. He had been a carrier, a symbol, a vessel. Carl Jung called them synchronistic encounters, moments that seem accidental, but are anything but. He believed that when the unconscious is ready, it summons exactly what it needs: a face, a voice, a mirror. And that mirror doesn't always show beauty. Sometimes it shows wounds. Sometimes it shows the exact fear you swore you buried. So no, not every love was soft. Not every connection was light. Some were storms wrapped in skin. Some came not to heal you, but to expose you. Because the ones who shake you the most often carry the energy of the lesson you've refused to learn. And when they vanish, and it isn't just loss you feel, it's disorientation, a collapse of something archetypal. You didn't lose them. You lost a structure in your psyche, one you had unknowingly built your identity around.
And now you're standing in the quiet rubble.
But here's what Jung would whisper in that silence. They weren't the stranger, you were. You. The version of you who kept loving the same illusion. You. The one who believed the wound needed to be filled from the outside. So now ask yourself, was it ever about them? Or was it always about what you weren't ready to face in yourself? Not all hauntings come from ghosts. Some come from truths we couldn't yet carry. He stood at the edge of the place where it all ended. Not a cliff, not a room, but a silence inside himself that had finally gone still. It wasn't about Mira anymore, not her words, not her absence. It was about the echo she left behind, a shape in his psyche, half light, half wound. She had broken something open, or maybe he had.
Because what do you call it when someone enters your life and when they leave, you're no longer the same species of soul?
Carl Jung would say individuation, but it didn't feel noble, it felt like disintegration. He wasn't sure if he was evolving or just dissolving.
And maybe you know that feeling too. Maybe you've been torn open by someone who never even saw you. Maybe your heart was rewritten by hands that were only ever reaching for themselves.
Maybe the love you gave wasn't received, because it was never truly meant for them. It was a message addressed inward, mistakenly sent outward.
And now, you're not chasing anyone, but you're still haunted.
So tell me, was it ever about them? Or were they just the final mirror showing you the part of yourself you've always run from? Because maybe the real question is not why they left, but why you kept leaving yourself every time someone arrived. And now, as the dust settles, you're left with a version of yourself that no longer fits your name. So who are you? Without the ache, without the symbol, without the story? Maybe healing isn't closure. Maybe it's just a different kind of haunting.
If this stirred something within you, maybe it wasn't just a coincidence. The journey inward begins in silence. Follow the signs, stay aware, and remember, the self is always watching.